Hey, how's everybody doing? Just wanted to make a quick video here on my Atomic. Had some people asking questions about my setup, so I figured I'd show them what's going on. So, started life as a regular Volantex Atomic. Not a bad little boat, cheap. Um, had some issues. When I first bought mine, my controller was broken, unfortunately, and it wouldn't even do anything, so I had to use my own receiver. So after I got that, it was okay. But then shortly after, I noticed that the ESC stopped working. So, you know, luckily I had some extra parts laying around, and I was able to get this thing going. And at one point, I was going to sell this boat, but I decided to keep messing with it. I started off by just changing the ESC, like I said, to like a fly color, well, it's a turnkey, 90 amp, and ran like a 43 millimeter prop on stock strut. I changed the rudder, and it ran good. Uh, Upped it up to 6S just to see what this boat would do, and it really flew. And then it took off like literally into the air, and when it landed, it kind of broke my rudder. Well, it didn't break the rudder; it actually ripped the rudder out of the holes. So I figured I would strengthen the hull a bit and upgrade some things. So I figured if I was going to do it, I might as well do it right. And as you can see, my hatch here has also been strengthened. So I used some carbon fiber cloth and some epoxy. Kind of laid it down in there. Did the same thing in the hull. Not the best, but not terrible. Also, you can see here we added a Leopard. It's a 3650 small motor, 2290 kV, so damn near 2300. I got two 2S's in here right now. Also, I have a different servo, a little 20 kg. So yeah, it's not necessary to do a carbon fiber inlay in your Atomic, and most people think it's a waste of time because it's a cheap plastic boat. However, I really like the way these things are designed, and it's a little bit narrower than like a Blackjack 24, but a little longer actually. So kind of similar in the way they ride. But on the bottom of my boat, I did have issues with the ride pads matching up. On this side here, this right side, there was a line that kind of followed all the way down the very edge. Kind of matches up with the line here. I don't know if you can see that on camera. There's like an edge that dips in and then comes back out. That's part of the mold. Now, I'm pretty sure that was purposely molded like that up here on the front of the sponsons. However, in the back, they're supposed to be completely flush. This side was completely flat. This side had that line in it, and I don't know if they did that on purpose or if that was just quality control, because these boats are only like $150 without anything for plug and play. So me being me, I decided to sand these all the way down. I added epoxy, sanded them down, added some epoxy until I built up enough layers to where this was flat and true, just like this side. Also, I used some black nail polish to kind of dab with a sponge, and I created some texture. As you can see, some of it's come off of here. That's because I've later went through and I sanded some of the high spots I found, but it still rides 10 times better. It doesn't look the best, but oh well. Aside from that, I also epoxied the tips up here, so I poured, I had a total of 100 milliliters of epoxy, and I used most of it for the inlay, but I used about 50 milliliters of that in the tips themselves, so I put about 25 in either and let it harden up. I'm just going to show you the difference here. So you can see I don't have any inlay in this part of the hull right in here at all, just because I couldn't really fit up that way. My hand doesn't fit in there that well. and there was really no need to strengthen that part of the hull, but you know, that would have just added extra weight. But I'm going to show you something. Let's see if you can see this on camera, but on here, I can actually, I don't know if you can actually hear it. I can squeeze these sponsons with my hand right here. Towards the tip, can't squeeze anything because of the epoxy. Towards the back here on the ride pads, you can't squeeze them at all. Like the inlay made that much of a difference to this cheap hull. So definitely something to, you know, look towards if you're trying to get more speed out of your Atomic. Also, I changed the stuffing tube. I put a 7/32 brass tubing on here, and also I replaced the strut because the stock strut sucks on these things. It's plastic. This is obviously better, and it's nicer too because it's got a little bit of a tapered edge here. It's rounded on the bottom, but it's kind of flat as well. So I'm assuming when you're adjusting this, that kind of creates a nice little pad on the rear to ride on. So I like that about that. I mean, other than that, it's pretty much a simple setup. I'm not saying if you want to get more speed, you have to do all these things, because it'll definitely do it stock form. However, if you crash doing over 50 miles an hour, it's a good chance that you're going to rip something out or something's going to break. So I figured I wanted to do something that would do 50 miles an hour reliably, and if it takes a hit, it's okay. And like I say, I carbon fibered the rear of the transom as well, because I didn't want the same things, you know, happening and just ripping out hardware. That's no fun. Usually, I mean, I'm pretty safe when I run my boats, but things happen. So, but yeah, I mean, it's a pretty simple setup. Don't have to go into as much, you know, detail and hard work that I did in order to strengthen your hull. Honestly, you could probably get away with just scuffing the inside of the hull and throwing a layer of epoxy in there. For that adds some weight, which is never usually a good thing in a boat. You want to try to take out weight. But in this case, you want to kind of add weight to this thing. It likes to flop around. It's very light, a little too light. Now with the extra weight, the boat sits flat on the water, and it feels like it's just way more rigid. It feels like it's way more of an expensive boat. Like when I drive this thing, and let's say like I drive my pro boat like Sonic Wave, yeah, it's on the cheaper spectrum of boats, but that boat feels solid. Like it feels like a good boat when you're driving it. The handling, the way it takes the power, and it takes a beating. This thing now feels similar to that, if not better, actually. Just with some little modifications. And then, well, hello, Supra, my dog. My dad actually has a Traxxas Spartan, and he's been getting speed runs out of his. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to put a GPS in this thing, but he was actually able to get 51 out of it that day, and we did a couple of drag runs, and both, actually about 3 drag runs, and all 3 he would get me right at the beginning, but this thing seemed to pass it towards the top end, which was interesting. I really was not expecting this to do over 51 miles an hour, but apparently it was, because every race we did, this boat pulled on his. And so it just goes to show you the efficiency of a catamaran hull versus a V-hull or mono hull. So you can definitely make these things go really quick with some good components on there. And honestly, I think this boat looks really good, and it came out great. So I'm happy with it to have a boat achieve over 50 miles an hour on 4S, and it'll do it all day, no heat issues, no problems, nothing. So yeah, I just wanted to show kind of my build on the Atomic, and the reason why it does go as fast as it does, and the reason why it handles the way it does is because of the setup I have on it now. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, you know, feel free to comment or ask. I enjoy talking boat stuff. So yeah, have a good one.